Is it possible? Is it possible for you to allow me to share my screen?
Oh, that shouldn't be a problem. Is it a problem? Are you trying and it doesn't work?
No, I haven't tried. I just want to make sure I can do that because
Oh,
I,
well,
all professional lack, I got myself a little PowerPoint presentation here.
let's see. Allowed. Well,
Yes, it looks like it will allow me to share screen, so that's perfect.
oh,
Perfect.
good. All right. Well, um, unfortunately, nobody gave me any anything to use to introduce Jan with, but so we'll just have to use the fact that we remember her from the 2007 technical communication competition in which she won Best of Show,
There you go.
and I know she's started another career now, and she's going to tell us all about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Jan and let her do her own introductions.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. So it's really great to see everybody. I'm gonna do a real live prezo here. Um, so first off, before I get started, to follow up on what Richard said, I cannot emphasize strongly enough the importance of volunteering with STC. That is indeed how I got my career started in technical writing these many years ago. With the San Francisco chapter, and did anything that anyone would allow me to do pretty much, so that I could get to know people, so that I could start building my own portfolio, so that I could get my career in technical writing going. So again, it's super important. And we're here talking about career development. And so, that's a way you develop your career. So anyway, my name is Jan Johnston-Tyler, and as you've probably figured out, I used to be a technical writer many, many moons ago, and I changed careers. And lo and behold, I am in part a career counselor. I own a small agency in Santa Clara by the name of Evo Libre Consulting. And we work with neurodiverse clients ages 14 through adult. So these are people who have mild learning disabilities. These are people who may have mood disorders, high functioning autism, what we used to call Asperger's syndrome. Now we call neurodiverse or less impacted autism, people with ADHD. And so these are folks, first off, many of whom I managed back in the day. Silicon Valley is, of course, replete with neurodiverse people, always has been. But these are people also who sometimes have difficulty getting through school, getting through college, and getting into employment and staying employed. And so I, many moons ago, 28 years ago, had my own neurodiverse kiddo, my first one. And I could see as he was growing up that he was going to struggle.
I got headphones on if you wanted to watch the news or anything.
Oops. Bruce, Bruce, mute yourself. Anyway, that we could help them just like I was going to need to help my son kind of be successful in the greater world. Whoops, did that go two? No, just went one. So some of us, a few of us on this call have been in employment for quite some time. And I have to say that career development has changed drastically in the, how many years, 40 years or so now that I've been in the workforce. So promotions now are no longer based on longevity, which is probably a good thing. With a few exceptions, you are now responsible for managing your own career. Back when I first started in high tech in the workforce, it was part and parcel of a manager's job to help you develop your career. You would have annual goals that you would discuss. You would talk about the next level or promotion you were going for. And your manager, if he or she were decent, they would help you figure out how to get to the next level. Anymore, there's less and less of that. And so employees are pretty much left to their own devices to figure out how they want to move forward. It is up to you also to make strategic moves, staying within the company, moving to another department, or leaving. Of course, that's always been the case. And one of the things that we all have to decide, and I think that this continues to be true, as to whether or not you want to continue to be an individual contributor or whether you want to go into management. Now, I think sadly, that is less a conscious decision anymore from what I've seen in the last 10 years in the workforce, where oftentimes by sheer dint of being there, people are being promoted into management, when in fact it's really not what they want to do. And I'm hoping that that changes again, that people make a conscious decision or are allowed to make a conscious decision to either stay as an individual contributor and to be rewarded appropriately as they continue to gain seniority, or to make the switch over and go into people management. One thing we'll continue to see, and I hate this word, but a focus on upskilling. You'll note it's in single quotes. By the way, sidebar, can I just tell you how nerve-wracking it is to create a presentation for a bunch of technical writers? I went through this twice to make sure there were no glaring typos, but I'm sure you will find them. Anyway, upskilling. So regardless of who you are or how old you are, you're going to continue to need to learn new skills. That's just the way it is. Really doesn't matter what career you're in. There's very few careers where you can learn a set of skills either in a training program or in a 2-year program or a 4-year program and rest on those skills for the rest of your life. That's just not the way it works. So you have to continually feel like you're in growth, in a growth mindset, as they say, to learn new skills, to participate in organizations such as STC, to take classes, to go to conferences, to do anything you can to continue to learn. And along the way, you should try to decide, if you can, what's your end goal? Are you planning on becoming, the world's greatest indexer? Are you interested in going to management, and continue to work those goals over time? So back in the olden days, and this was before 2008, again, as I mentioned, employers were much more involved in their employees' career dev. Anymore, I'm seeing years go by where nobody gets any new goals. I'm seeing, huge turnover between, one manager to the next, and, whole review cycles get missed. And certainly in All right, I am muted. Am I still muted? Okay, sorry, that was interesting. So that people need to be, anyhow, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So in the last 18 months, many of us have not had any review cycles. Companies like Google have just decided to skip them. Because there's not enough face time, I guess. Not really sure why that might be, but I think it's really important, especially as we're hopefully coming out of this pandemic now, to really take the initiative yourself to create your own annual goals, even if they're not formal, even if it's not something you're going to have in your own review cycle formally. I still think it's really important for you to sit down with your manager, say, these are the things that I want to do the next year, and get feedback from your manager about, do you agree that these are things I should be working on? Is there anything else? It may seem a little bit over the top if the rest of the company is not doing it, but as a good former technical writer, I do believe in documentation. And I think that it's really important to document, to write down, be mindful about what you're trying to do, and to share that with your management. Some of the other things that you can think about is, are there things internally to your organization that you can participate in? So for example, I work with SAP employees, and they have fellowships there. Other companies do as well. I know Microsoft has a similar program. And so these are programs where you can apply to work cross-functionally or with another organization part-time to learn new skills, to learn a new sector of the marketplace, to learn how things are done in a different business unit. So these are really good opportunities. It gets you stretching a little bit, out meeting new people in different parts of the organization. Anything you can do to kind of spread your wings a little bit, learn more, network more, etc. And then of course there's extra company projects that I have here, such as STC. So participating in competitions, participating in your local group, going to events and conferences. All of these are really great things to continue networking and to continue your own career development. I think it's really important to find out, and as we all know, some companies are very, very supportive of participation in organizations like STC. Other companies are just like, yeah, whatever, I don't really care. They don't see the value add, which to me is sad. But I think you should still do it even if the company's not necessarily enthusiastic. Come on. My apologies. It appears that there we go. So we talked about working on skills. So there really are 3 different layers of skills. And what I always like people to think about when they're thinking about career development is what is it you want to do next, right? You have to have some kind of goal in mind in order to get there. People who don't really think about their career kind of muddle along and end up wondering how they got to where they are. It's because they weren't intentional about what they were trying to do with their career. So think about it, look around, talk to people, what kind of things do you want to be doing? And then look, a very honest look at your own skill set and try to ascertain what are the areas that I need to work on. So one obviously would be technical, whether or not it's learning about technology that you're writing about, or whether or not it's about learning new tools or honing your tools, skill set to deliver technical communication. That's definitely one area. Another is more on the professional level. So not so much the tools per se, but would you like to work on your editing skills? Would you like, as I said earlier, to be the world's greatest indexer? Certainly there are ways that you can learn those skills. People who offer classes, I know that there's tons of stuff still out there. There certainly was when I was working. And look and see what's out there. How can you add to your bag of tricks? And then of course, the last one is managerial. If you're interested in becoming a manager, what do you want to do? How do you want to learn how to be a really great people manager? Knowing that, most of us who were in management or are in management, it's partly knowing really good work ethic and understanding how the work gets done and having great technical and professional skills. But it's also that whole other piece, which is learning how to manage people, how to lead, how to encourage, et cetera, and so forth. So some rules of the road when you're looking at these kinds of things, your mileage will vary certainly because not every company is the same. Again, not to put too fine a point on it, but some of the things that I've seen in the last 5 to 6 years, well, actually longer than that now, maybe 10 years, in some ways, and this may sound horrible, but the pandemic was probably a good thing in some regards in terms of changing the landscape of the workforce. And kind of makes me wish I went into organizational psychology, because this great social experiment that we're living through is undoubtedly going to have some significant impact on how the workforce works. So at any rate, I think that there will be some significant changes. But when you're talking about training or talking about going to events or conferences, of course, the first question you might have is, will the company pay? Again, it depends on the company. Some companies have a flat say $2,000 a year that they'll give each employee for continuing education. Other companies are very discretionary in how they apply those funds. Other companies have no funds. And you know, you certainly want to ask your employer if they'll pay or reimburse for any training or events that you want to attend. But if there's any way that you can do it anyway, I would say go ahead. Remember, it is tax deductible. I know a lot of people who actually have the money to do these things, but refuse to do them because their company won't pay. And I think that that's really, really short-sighted. I think it's important to remember that you own your own career development. So just because your company is not going to pay you doesn't mean you should be short-sighted. Another thing is, with regards to setting your career goals, is you may not get clear answers. You may talk to your manager and say, you know what, I've been you know, at level 7 for a couple of years now, and I'd really like to get to level 8. And I'd like to understand what it's going to take me to get there. And because I'm seeing managers who aren't really great managers out there, I'm hearing a lot of clients who say things like, you know, I still can't get a straight answer. I still don't know, you know, whether or not they'll even consider me for a promotion, nor will they be able to, are they able to tell me what I should be doing to get there? So that's really, really frustrating. And that goes back to writing your own goals and sitting down with your manager and saying, these are the things I intend to do. If I'm successful in these areas, would you consider me for a level 8? I think that sometimes we have to manage up more than I'm comfortable with, but it's the reality of the situation. Sometimes you'll sit with your manager and say that you have certain goals or things that you'd like to do, new areas that you want to conquer, and your manager will shut you down. I would say it's important to find out why the manager is not agreeing with you. Is it that they can't spare you, that you're too important in other places right now and they have to keep you on what you're doing, which really they shouldn't be doing, but I've seen it happen? Or do they think that you somehow don't merit that those stretch goals, that somehow you're not good enough? Now, I can't comment on whether or not you really are good enough or not, but I would say that if you're not getting straight answers from your manager about what you need to get to the next level, including the bad news, if there is bad news, then the manager is not doing his or her job, and it might be time to consider moving on. Also, getting, of course, passed up, which is really, really frustrating. I would love to say that there's no favoritism, but of course there is. And again, it really stings and it hurts when you're passed up for promotion and somebody else gets that job. The only thing I can recommend is try to regroup, try not to be too emotional, but to sit down with your manager and ask the tough questions about why that happened. And again, go back to tell me what I need to do to improve. And after, if you've been working this for a while, you know, for a year or so, and you're not getting straight answers, you don't have a good handle on what it is you need to do to move your career forward, it may be time to consider moving on. I do know that sometimes, especially earlier in your career, when you get hired as a junior writer, the company or your management team may continue to see you as a junior writer, even though you've developed considerably since you first started there. So the sad news is that you may have to move on to another position in order to get to the next level. Other careers. So, you know, there's a lot of other things writers can do. One, and a lot of people move on from technical writing. Technical writing actually is much different than it was when I first started. And I think, and I would ask Andrew if this is true, that there's probably less technical writer positions now than there were in the 90s. Andrew, do you think that's true?
I think there are fewer quantitatively, but they're more diverse. So an individual will do more things than a tech writer in the 80s and 90s, probably by a factor of 2 or 3.
Wow, that's, yeah. And I would agree, because I think people are doing, you know, different kinds of communication, right? Not just writing manuals. They're doing a lot of different things. Yep. So the other things that you can do if you're going to completely move out is contract writing, going and working for a nonprofit, which a lot of people love because it, oh, excuse me, I'm talking off. So contract writing, instead of being a full-time FTE, you can go into contract work. Some people really prefer contract work. Why? Because you can potentially make more money. If you don't like the position, you get to move on. Some people really like the novelty of working for different companies. So that's not a bad way to go. Contract consultants, so it's a little different. These are people who are more senior, who might come into a department that's struggling or a brand new company and helping set up a technical communications group. These tend to be people with many, many years of experience, and they tend to be of limited duration, usually about a year. I've only seen a couple people who've done this, but I know that they made pretty good money. And then other types of writing, right? So for example, adding different kinds of writing samples might be useful. So for example, I had mentioned earlier, doing proposal writing, doing grant writing. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for people who can do grants. I can't write one, they're horribly difficult, but some people have gotten really good at it. And companies and organizations pay quite a lot. So, with a little bit of practice and a little bit of ingenuity, there's all kinds of different writing that you can do. Ghostwriting books, research, all types of writing if you get tired of doing what you're doing. And then other project gigs, so tech writers by and large are not only are they very good and competent writers, they're also really good at project management. And, that's pretty much what they do day in, day out. And so considering lateral moves into other organizations that require some of the same skill sets like product marketing, instructional design, where it's using some of your base skills, but also those meta skills of project management. Those are other good areas. And then of course you could be wacky like I was and start a brand new career. And some people, make that conscious decision. I decided as I was getting older and knew for a variety of reasons I was going to have to work a good long time, that I wanted to do something where being older was not necessarily a bad thing. And that's why I went into counseling, because it really, I think, is the kind of career that works well to have a lot of life experience and a lot of different corporate experience, a lot of different things that I can bring to the table. And so for some people, creating what we call a sunset career is the right way to go. So here's another way to kind of frame this in terms of how often we change jobs. So today, a person who's graduating from college will have approximately 15 jobs in his or her lifetime, their lifetime. Will have 7 different careers, not just jobs, but careers, and will likely have less formal ongoing education and more micro degrees. So this is going back to Coursera or LinkedIn Learning and continuing to learn those skills. Millennials should have around 12 jobs, 5 different careers, and may return to school and probably did return to school in economic downturns and may also have some micro degrees as well. So it's kind of a blend. And then boomers, which is me, 10.8 jobs, not to put too fine a point on it. I've had 11, I counted them up yesterday. I've had 3 different careers, and in fact, that is the standard, and returned to school in economic downturns. Again, that was true for me as well. So I've got plenty of time now for anybody to ask questions, but the best defense is a good offense when you're developing your career. So I recommend that whenever you have a review cycle, make sure you update your resume at that time. You will forget over a period of time all the cool stuff you worked on. You also want to update your LinkedIn on that same day or around there. You want to keep your LinkedIn up to date. I recommend keeping what I call a brag folder on your desktop, so that all those fabulous emails you get from people who are so thrilled with your work, you can just copy them into the brag folder And then at review cycle, you've got them all handy right there. Take at least one class every year. Again, even if you have to pay for it, it's worth it. Keep your network active and speak, write, and volunteer over and over again. It's super important to stay visible and active in your career. And that's it. And now I want questions.
Well, thank you, Jan. Whoops, I'm trying to talk without my thing. Thank you. That was very interesting. And I noticed you talked about life goals, and I was wondering if you favor one or another particular system, like OKRs, for example.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, all that matters is the intentionality. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to capture your thoughts and to work them. It doesn't matter, whatever works for you, right? But it is important to be intentional. That is, I think, the most important piece. Anybody else?
Yes, there's one raised hand and it's mine.
Yes, ma'am.
And yes, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with me. I'm a little interested in the part that you mentioned, just kind of skipped into. I was a technical writer, then you had a special needs child, and you moved into, and that's a big story.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Not necessarily the personal part of it, but well, I guess you can't really do it without doing the personal part of it. But how do you do that? Because it seems to me like a big jump to go from technical writing.
It was, and
into coaching, yeah.
And it's funny because, and I'll tell you where the similarities lie. So when my son was in elementary school, I could see, he was really smart. He has no intellectual disability, but he, if you know a person with Asperger's, you kind of know what that looks like. And I could see that he was going to run into some problems, right? Later on, there were services for little kids, but there were no services for teenagers. And I wanted to make sure that, there were by the time he got there. And nobody was talking about it. There were services for people who had more significant impairment, but nothing for the kids who were just a little odd and needed some help. So I decided I had taken a couple of years off and had to go back to work because of for financial reasons. But I realized that I did not want to stay in tech forever. I was burning out. I had lived through the .com and was more than a little crispy. And so I had been told before by friends of mine and people I knew well that I would probably make a really great counselor. And because people have a tendency to want to talk to me and I'm pretty warm and friendly. So I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree while I was working full-time at Juniper, while I was raising two kids on my own, one of whom was an infant and the other one was special needs in elementary school. And so it took me a minute to get through my master's program. It took me about 5.5 years. And my goal was to become a career counselor and working with high school students and college students to help them find their path moving forward in areas where I thought they could really rock it, right? They'd be really good. And so I graduated and I hung out my shield and I made it a goal to speak to every psychologist, every psychiatrist, every educator, everyone I could think of who might know these kids, special ed attorneys, you name it. And that was in 2007. And I had a little tiny office and a really cramped upstairs room and or office suite. And it just kind of exploded over time. Part of it, Tony, was really being in the right place at the right time, right? I had a vision about what I wanted to do before other people were using the words like autism at work, right? I was already doing it when SAP came along to do some of these programs. So some of it was just dumb luck, but a lot of it was hard work too, and trying to figure out who would need these services. How do I get in front of people? How do I do this? And it was tough, and it was scary because my whole income depended on it. But I'll tell you, it's interesting when you think about, transferable skills. I've authored rather, since I've left, I've authored 3 books, 2 instructional guides. Yeah. And, so all those skills come in. I this year, I'm going to write 15 different transition reports. Each one's about 25 pages. And these are highly customized reports for an individual student with his or her specific challenges and designing a path for them moving forward. And I get paid really good money for it by the school districts who are in the process of being sued. So a lot of this is, based on all the skills that I learned over the years, being a really good writer, being very clear, very crisp and concise. Every time somebody gets one of my reports, they sit there slack-jawed going, this is the most thorough thing I've ever read. And I can navigate it. I don't know if anybody here has ever read, for example, a psychological evaluation. They're usually really painful to get through. My reports, bulleted lists and clear headings and, the whole 9 yards, right?
Topics.
Here's a beautiful document. And that really shows, right? Plus all the business skills that I've learned. I used to do a lot of project scoping and figuring out costs and this, that, and the other thing. All of that comes into play now. Plus all my management skills, right? I have 14 employees, so I'm really good at managing them. And parents, I'm always managing the parents.
Oh my God.
Because they can be kind of difficult to work with.
Oh my God. You are my dream person to follow. Well, thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. And that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. But it's, really, if you want to make the change, you can. You just know that it's going to take a lot of gumption, right? You're really going to have to get out there and kick it. But I think, the truth of the matter is that mid-career, I think it's actually easier to do than when you're young. Because when you're young, you're kind of stupid and brash. And when you're mid-career, never. Well, I know I was. When you're mid-career, you're a little bit more seasoned. You know how to position yourself, and you know what you don't know, and you're not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not trying to impress people anymore.
Well,
not as much. Not as much. Anyway, so that's the story.
Now, I'm sorry I missed it. Have you told us what your master's degree was in?
Counseling psychology with an emphasis in career. And that was at Santa Clara University, just down the street here.
Interesting. Okay, I'm not interested in following your exact path. However, what I did get that was very valuable from your talk is that I can create something else that meets my needs and satisfies somebody else's very well. I haven't taken jobs because I was very fortunate early career. I had a very fortunate early career. So yes, that was my house that you could see before the sun came in. And technical writing was kind of my fallback 4th career.
Mm-hmm.
And I retired from that. And I say that I'm willing to do short-term or intermittent work because I enjoy doing all kinds of different things, but nothing that I want to do absolutely full-time all the time. I'm enjoying my life. I've earned it. I worked hard.
And that's, you shouldn't have to. I mean, and that's kind of the joy of a sunset career. I honest to goodness had not intended to work nearly as hard as I'm working now. I didn't expect my company to grow the way it did. And it was extraordinarily organic. I never advertise. I have no marketing budget because I don't need to, right? So people have come to me and asked me for services, or, you know, Department of Rehab or a DOR vendor came to me and asked me to be a vendor. California Department of Education said, we need you as a non-public agency. Please go through with the certification, because we're rare, right? Because what we do is so different. So I could, at this point, should I want to, close up shop and just do one or two things and work maybe 15 hours a week. But I can't do that because that would be mean to my employees. but I could support myself doing that, right?
Well, yes, you can build one of them, but in the meanwhile, you use the beautiful term sunset career. That's what I'm going to put on my, I'm going to change my LinkedIn just as you suggested. And that's what I'm looking for, is a good sunset. And if you look around at the people who are willing to show their faces in this meeting, that's something. You spent a lot of time on early careers. And I think most of us are probably, if we're looking at all, would be looking for sunset careers. Do you have some more wisdom to share with that, since we got a little time left?
Absolutely. So I would say,
okay, I'm gonna turn my picture off and listen.
Okay, you turned, although it was kind of cool with that red kind of sun thing going on there. So sunset careers,
You look like you've been sainted.
It's Saint Tony. So sunset careers are typically careers that are not full-time, but it may not make as much money as mid-level or mid-careers. But the difference is that they have significance to you, right? That you are giving back to your community, or you're working on a project that you feel very strongly about. And that's really sort of what a sunset career is. And for those of us who are kind of getting up to that retirement age, you know, I know for me, there's no way I can retire right now. I've got a couple more years, like most of you. I'd love to see if I can get to 70 and get those full bennies. Yeah, baby. You know, we'll see if that happens. So it had better be a job that I like, and a job that I feel passionate about, and a job that I have control over the hours, right? That's really important. I've also, you know, kind of changed up how I work, so that I typically work 4 days a week, take Friday off, and then jump on and do work about half day on Saturday. Because I find, you know, especially because I'm doing this pretty much all day, every day, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted fixing people's problems for them day in and day out. It's tiring. And so come Thursday night, you know, that's takeout night, baby. I'm flopping on the couch and I'm done for a day. But, you know, I think that it's really important that for those of us who want to continue to work or have to continue to work, find what you love. You know, find something that you're passionate about. How can you give back? And when I look at the folks, you know, especially the folks that I know here, you know, you have so much to offer younger generations. And, you know, everything from, you know, maybe going back and teaching, maybe going back and tutoring. You know, I mean, there's a lot of kids out there who need a lot of help. And maybe now's the time to think about that and think about, you know, giving back to our communities. At least that's how I look at it. Anything else, my wonderful people?
Jan, this is Andrew. I really want to reiterate the value of the passion project that you call a sunset career. I hope it's not the sunset, but I hope it's what you care about most right now. You're certainly making a huge difference for a lot of people who don't dare draw attention to their challenges. When I tell people about tech writing, I say, you're going to work with a lot of unusual people with
engineers.
but they're all unusual. None of them seeks to be standard. None of them is scared to be anything but unique. And I'm very pleased to have watched from a distance as you've
Thank you, Andrew.
Your trajectory. I basically stopped paying attention to Jan professionally when you headed everything at Cisco, and I salute you for surviving that. And I didn't even know about Juniper.
Yeah,
and
Liz does.
what you've done since
Yeah.
is stellar. So
Yeah.
Well,
we
thank
thank
you.
you. We're all sorts of good memories. So
Thank you,
kudos.
Andrew.
If I had a question, it would be, is there a metric that you might suggest when before people get crispy to make that change? Because I know I was beginning to get crispy as a tech writer before I became a recruiter, and then I got the ultimate kind of positive and negative jolt to do that kind of work, and I feel it to some extent it was my calling. It was a nice alternative to writing an API doc.
Yep. So what immediately popped into my mind, Andrew, was if you find yourself weeping on your keyboard, you missed it by about a month.
Okay.
So, seriously, it really is, part of my job right now is to help people out of their jobs and into a better fit, right? And I oftentimes, sometimes I have background information that I can't share, but what I always focus on, and certainly in the last year and a half, is mental health, right? If you're miserable, for F's sake, why are you still there?
Yeah.
That's really silly in my mind. We spend too much time at work to be miserable. And it's up to us to change. And so I think that misery, though, kind of can creep up on you, right? Certainly the ill health, the mental health breakdowns, the palpitating heart, the weeping, all of that, if you're experiencing those symptoms, it's time to go. And certainly in the last 18 months, I've seen so many people go out on leave of absence. I've seen so many people on FMLA. I've seen so many people who are just hanging on by a thread, right? Life is too short, just too short.
So they're more fear motivated than they are growth oriented.
Exactly. And we really want to get people into growth, right? But, for the people who are actually actively working on their career, who are in that growth mindset and trying to meet with their management, they'll know if their managers are not responding to them by saying, yes, this is great. I really like the fact that you're taking initiative to show me what you want to do. If all you're getting is, well, I'm not sure, then that feedback should be your first warning, right? You're singing to an audience that does not want to hear you. And that really is the time I think you should start looking.
Fair enough. I don't know many managers who actually notice what their employees are doing, or at least.
And it was so different before. For all you youngins, I have to tell you, there was a day when people actually managed and really actually enjoyed managing people. I was one of them. That's part of the reason I went into career development, because that's part of what I was doing with my employees, helping them to develop their careers.
Yep.
So yeah, anyway.
That is exceptional now.
Yeah, truly, it is.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for having me today. I really, truly do appreciate it. It's wonderful seeing familiar faces. Liz, I think, every 18 years, maybe it's time for lunch again,
I think so. I'll come to you.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Anyhow, everyone, again, thank you so much. My contact is here. If anybody has any questions or anything follow up, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email and I will be in touch.
Well, I think I don't have one right in front of me here, but we always give our speakers one of our coveted Berkeley chapter mugs, and so we'll see that you get one. I think Rachel probably has your contact information, and we'll send you that.
Excellent.
And-
That would be lovely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think one thing I've found being older is that, oh, there's one. Yeah,
Lovely.
that you have
Here it
where
is.
you just have a different value proposition to the employer. You know, you know what they say, old age and treachery, you know, beats out youth and vigor, or whatever.
That's right.
I think there was cunning in there someplace, but
Yeah, could be. Well, I think it's going to change. I really do. I think that I think after the pandemic finally subsides, I am hoping for a bit of a resurgence of employee rights, and for people not taking any more BS anymore, and being able to stand up for what they believe in and to be treated better. That's my hope.
Would be nice.
It would be. It would be. Viva la résistance.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And yes, anybody who wants to contact me, please feel free, and I'll get back to you. Thank you so much, everyone. Take good
Thank you.
care.
A delight.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, there we go. And I'll stop the recording here, I guess.
Oh.